There is a building that does not explain itself. One room leads quietly into another, each space calm, empty, and complete on its own. No doors need to be opened quickly. No direction is required. This story begins with a single step and then allows you to wander without effort. Welcome to Bedtime Stories of Calm and Grace. Tonight's story is The Keeper of Endless Rooms. I have lived in the rooms for as long as I can remember. This is not a figure of speech. I mean it precisely. My memory begins in the 17th Eastern Gallery, where the windows look out upon a sky that is always the color of early evening. I was standing before a tapestry that depicted a garden I have never seen, and I was holding a small brass key, and I did not know how I had come to be there or what the key was for. That was many years ago now. I have since learned a great deal about the rooms, though I suspect I will never learn everything. The rooms are vast beyond measure. I have walked for days in a single direction and found no end. I have climbed staircases that spiraled upward for what felt like weeks. I have descended into halls where the air grew thick and warm and smelled of stone and deep water. And yet I am not afraid. The rooms are my home. They have always provided for me. There is water in the fountains and fruit on the trees that grow in the solarium galleries. There are beds in certain chambers, soft and clean, as if someone had prepared them just before my arrival. There are books in the libraries, though many are in languages I cannot read. And there are paintings on the walls that show places I have never been, and people I have never known. I am the keeper of the endless rooms. I do not know who gave me this title. Perhaps I gave it to myself, but it feels true. I walk through the rooms each day, and I tend to them, and I love them, and in return they shelter me. This is the record of my days. Part 1. I wake each morning in the Chamber of Quiet Hours. It is a small room by the standards of this place, perhaps 30 paces across, with a domed ceiling painted to resemble a night sky. The stars on that ceiling do not move, but they glow faintly even in darkness, providing just enough light to see by. My bed is positioned beneath the center of the dome, so that when I open my eyes, the first thing I see is the painted constellation I have named the Sleeping Fox. I do not know if this is its true name. I do not know if it has a true name, but I have called it the Sleeping Fox for as long as I can remember, and it has never objected. I rise slowly. There is no hurry in the rooms. I have learned this over many years. The rooms do not demand haste. They reward patience, attention, care. I wash my face in the small basin by the window. The water is always cool and clean, though I have never discovered its source. I dress in the simple clothes that appear, freshly folded, on the chair beside my bed each morning. I do not know who provides them, perhaps the rooms themselves. I have learned not to question such gifts. Then I begin my rounds. The first stop is always the Gallery of Morning Light. It is 312 paces from my chamber, through the corridor of whispers, past the room of forgotten umbrellas, down the staircase that curves like the inside of a seashell. I know the path so well, I could walk it with my eyes closed. I often do, simply for the pleasure of feeling the familiar stones beneath my feet. The gallery of morning light is one of my favorite places in all the rooms. It is a long hall, perhaps 1,000 paces from end to end, with windows along the eastern wall that stretch from floor to ceiling. The glass in these windows very old and slightly warped, so that the light that enters is softened, diffused, made gentle. And what light it is! Every morning, the sky beyond those windows fills with colors I have no names for, roses and golds, and silvers and blues, layered upon each other like the pages of a book left open in the rain. The light pours through the ancient glass and paints the marble floor in patterns that shift and change as the sun rises higher. I stand in that light each morning for a long while. I let it wash over me. I let it warm my face and hands. I give thanks silently to whatever force or being or accident of nature created such beauty. This is the first duty of the keeper, to witness. The rooms are full of wonders that no one else sees. If I did not stand in the gallery of morning light each day, the light would still pour through those windows. The patterns would still dance across the floor, but there would be no one to know them, no one to love them, no one to remember. I believe the rooms deserve to be witnessed. I believe all beautiful things do. After the gallery of morning light, I walk to the fountain court. Part 2. The Fountain Court. The fountain court is one of the great gathering places of the rooms. Though I have never seen anyone gathered there, it is a circular chamber, perhaps 500 paces across, with a domed ceiling so high it disappears into shadow. The floor is made of pale blue stone, worn smooth by countless feet over countless years. And in the center, rising like a dream made solid, stands the great fountain. I do not have words adequate to describe the great fountain. It is perhaps 60 feet tall, carved from a single piece of white stone that seems to glow with its own inner light. The carvings depict figures I do not recognize, men and women and creatures that are neither, all intertwined in a dance that has no beginning and no end. Water pours from dozens of sources, cascading down the tiers of the fountain, collecting in the wide basin at its base, filling the court with the sound of gentle rain. I come here each morning to check the water level and to clear any debris that may have fallen into the basin. This is rare. The rooms are remarkably clean, but sometimes a leaf will drift in from one of the garden galleries, or a feather from one of the birds that nest in the upper halls. I remove these carefully, respectfully, and place them in the small pouch I carry for this purpose. Today, I notice something I have not seen before. There is a small object resting on the lip of the basin. It is round and flat, about the size of my palm, and it appears to be made of copper or bronze. I pick it up and turn it over in my hands. It is a disc of some kind, engraved with symbols I do not recognize. They spiral inward from the edge toward the center, growing smaller and more intricate as they go. In the very center is a tiny hole, as if something once passed through it. I have found objects like this before. The rooms are full of mysteries, books in unknown languages, paintings of places that may not exist, instruments whose purpose I cannot fathom. I have learned to accept these mysteries with equanimity. I do not need to understand everything. I only need to tend to it, to keep it safe, to ensure it remains for whatever future may come. I slipped the disc into my pouch alongside the feather I collected yesterday and the small blue stone I found last week in the corridor of echoes. Then I sit on the edge of the basin and listen to the water. The sound of the great fountain is unlike any other sound in the rooms. It is constant, but not monotonous. It changes subtly with the seasons, with the time of day, with forces I do not understand. Sometimes it sounds like laughter. Sometimes it sounds like weeping. Sometimes it sounds like a conversation in a language I almost remember. Today it sounds like a lullaby. I close my eyes and let the sound wash over me. I feel my breathing slow. I feel my thoughts grow quiet. I feel myself becoming part of the rooms, dissolving into the stone and water and light, becoming indistinguishable from the place I love. This is a feeling I treasure. This sense of belonging so completely that the boundary between self and world becomes thin, permeable, almost imaginary. I do not know how long I sit there. Time moves strangely in the rooms, but eventually I open my eyes and continue my rounds. Part 3. The Library of Unfinished Thoughts. There are many libraries in the rooms. I have found 17 so far, though I suspect there are more. Some are small, no larger than a closet, with a single shelf holding a single book. Some are vast beyond imagining, hall after hall of towering shelves that disappear into darkness above and below. But my favorite is the Library of Unfinished Thoughts. It is located in the western reaches of the rooms, past the Hall of Mirrors, through the Garden of Stone Flowers, up a narrow staircase that winds around the inside of a tower I have never seen from the outside. The Library of Unfinished Thoughts is not particularly large, perhaps 100 shelves arranged in concentric circles around a central reading area, furnished with comfortable chairs and small tables. The ceiling is made of glass, or something like glass, and through it one can see a sky that is perpetually the soft gray of an overcast afternoon. What makes this library special is its contents. Every book on these shelves is unfinished. Some are missing their final chapters. Some stop mid-sentence. Some contain only a single page, a single paragraph, a single line. I have found books that consist entirely of the words, "Once upon a time," repeated over and over, as if the author could not decide what came next. I find these books unbearably moving. They represent, I think, the dreams and intentions that never quite became real, the stories that wanted to be told but could not find their endings, the thoughts that flickered into being and then faded before they could be fully formed. I spend an hour each day in the Library of Unfinished Thoughts, reading what I can, honoring what I cannot. I believe these incomplete works deserve attention as much as any finished masterpiece. Perhaps more. They remind me that incompleteness is not failure, that the attempt itself has value, that not everything must be resolved to be meaningful. Today I select a book at random from the shelves. It is bound in green leather, worn soft with age, and the title on the spine reads simply, "The Journey." I settle into my favorite chair and open to the first page. She left on a Tuesday. The book begins. Because Tuesdays had always felt like beginnings to her. Mondays were too obvious. Wednesdays too middle. But Tuesdays had a quality of quiet possibility that she had loved since childhood. I read on. The book tells of a woman who leaves her home to search for something she cannot name. She travels through forests and over mountains. She crosses rivers and deserts. She meets strangers who help her, and strangers who hinder her, and strangers who simply watch her pass. The sentences flow like water. I can feel the author's care in every word, the attention they paid to rhythm and sound and meaning. And then, on page 47, the book ends. She stood at the edge of the sea, it says, and she knew that what she had been searching for was nothing more. The sentence is unfinished. The page is blank after that. The remaining pages are empty. I sit with the book for a long while, wondering what the woman was searching for, wondering what she found at the edge of the sea, wondering why the author stopped writing, whether by choice or by circumstance, or by some force beyond their control. I will never know. That is the nature of unfinished things. They leave us with questions that have no answers. But perhaps that is all right. Perhaps the questions themselves are a kind of gift. Perhaps wondering is its own form of completion. I return the book to its shelf, gently, reverently. I thank it silently for what it gave me. Then I continue my rounds. Part 4. The Hall of Echoes between the Library of Unfinished Thoughts and the Garden of Perpetual Twilight. There is a place I call the Hall of Echoes. It is not on any map I have made. I discovered it by accident, years ago, when I took a wrong turn in the corridor of whispers and found myself walking down a passage I did not recognize. The passage grew narrower and darker, and I almost turned back, but something drew me forward, some sense that there was something important waiting at the end. The Hall of Echoes is vast, perhaps 1,000 paces long, perhaps more. The ceiling rises so high that it disappears into shadow, and the walls are made of a smooth black stone that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. But what makes this place extraordinary is the sound. Every sound you make in the Hall of Echoes repeats. Not immediately, not like an ordinary echo. The repetition comes later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes hours. You might speak a word and hear it again the next morning. You might cough and hear that cough repeated at midnight. You might simply breathe and hear that breath return to you, soft and gentle, like a gift. I have spent many hours in the Hall of Echoes, listening to the sounds that return to me. Sometimes I hear my own voice, speaking words I said days or weeks ago. Sometimes I hear footsteps that might be mine, or might be someone else's entirely. Once, I heard what sounded like singing, a woman's voice, high and clear, singing a melody I did not recognize. I do not know if I sang it myself in some moment I have forgotten, or if the hall preserves sounds from before my time here. The Hall of Echoes teaches me something important about the nature of time. We think of time as a river, flowing in one direction, carrying us forward and leaving the past behind. But Perhaps time is more like this hall. Perhaps everything that has ever happened is still happening somewhere. Perhaps every word ever spoken is still echoing, waiting to be heard again. This is a comforting thought. It means that nothing is truly lost, not the moments of joy, not the words of love, not the laughter of people we will never see again. It is all still there, somewhere in the vast hall of existence, echoing softly, waiting for someone to listen. Today, as I pass through the hall of echoes, I pause in the center and speak aloud. Thank you, I say. Thank you for this space. Thank you for the chance to witness and to keep. My words disappear into the darkness above. I do not know when they will return to me. Perhaps tomorrow, perhaps next year, perhaps never. But I have spoken them. They exist now, somewhere in the fabric of the rooms. And that is enough. Part 5. The Garden of Perpetual Twilight. Not all of the rooms are rooms. Some are gardens, some are courtyards, some are open spaces that seem to have no walls at all, only sky above and ground below, and the sense of being held in something vast and gentle. The Garden of Perpetual Twilight is one of these spaces. I do not understand how it works. I enter through a wooden door in the eastern wing, and I step out into what appears to be an outdoor garden, complete with trees and flowers and winding paths. But when I look back, the door is still there, set into a stone wall that seems to exist only for the purpose of holding it. The sky here is always the deep blue of late evening, just before the stars appear. There is a moon low on the horizon, full and golden. It never rises higher. It never sets. The light it casts is soft and warm, turning everything to shades of silver and amber. I walk the paths slowly, as I always do. The flowers here are unlike any I have seen elsewhere. They bloom in colors that have no names, colors I could not describe to another person, even if there were another person to describe them to. Some glow faintly with their own light. Some release fragrances so beautiful, they make me want to weep. The trees are ancient. I can feel their age when I place my hands on their bark. They have been here longer than I have, longer than anyone has. They have watched generations come and go. They have kept their secrets. Sometimes I talk to the trees. I tell them about my day, about the things I have seen and done. I know they cannot hear me, not in the way people hear, but I believe they sense something. I believe my presence registers in some deep, slow way, the way a stone registers the pressure of water that flows over it for 1,000 years. Today, I walk to the center of the garden, where there is a small clearing with a wooden bench. I sit down and look up at the unchanging sky. I think about time. In the world outside the rooms, if there is a world outside the rooms, time moves in one direction. Day follows night, follows day. People are born and grow old and die. Things change irreversibly, constantly. But here, time moves differently. The gallery of morning light is always morning. The garden of perpetual twilight is always twilight. The seasons in the solarium shift from spring to summer, to autumn to winter, but they do so on their own schedule according to a logic I do not understand. I have been here for many years. I know this because my journals fill many volumes now, and because certain rooms feel familiar in a way that only comes with long acquaintance. But I do not feel old. My hands are smooth. My eyes are clear. My body moves without pain or stiffness. Perhaps time does not touch the keeper the way it touches others. Perhaps this is part of the bargain. Perhaps I will tend these rooms forever, walking the same paths, witnessing the same wonders, loving the same stones and windows and fountains until the end of time itself. This thought does not frighten me, it comforts me. I would not want the rooms to be alone. Part 6. The Chamber of Waters there is a place deep in the western wing where the architecture changes. The halls become rougher there, less refined. The smooth marble gives way to raw stone, and the careful geometric angles become irregular, organic, as if the rooms were carved by water rather than by hands. This is where I find the Chamber of Waters. It is perhaps the most beautiful place in all the rooms, though beauty seems an inadequate word for what I feel when I stand within it. The chamber is enormous. The ceiling arches overhead like the inside of a cathedral, and from that ceiling hang thousands upon thousands of stone formations, pale and delicate, some thin as threads, some thick as tree trunks. They have been forming for ages beyond counting, drop by drop, mineral by mineral, shaped by the patient work of water over time, and below them, filling the floor of the chamber, is a lake. The water is so still, so perfectly clear, that at first I did not realize it was there. I thought I was looking at a mirror, at a reflection of the ceiling formations. But then I knelt at the edge and touched the surface, and ripples spread outward, disturbing the perfect image, revealing the depth beneath. The lake has no visible bottom. I have dropped pebbles into it and watched them fall, growing smaller and smaller, until they disappeared entirely into the darkness below. I do not know how deep it goes. I do not know what lives in those depths, if anything lives there at all. But I do know that the water is warm. Not hot, not uncomfortable, simply warm, like bath water that has been sitting for just the right amount of time. When I lower my hand into the lake, I feel welcomed, embraced, as if the water itself is glad of my presence. I come here when I need to feel held. The rooms are vast, and sometimes their vastness weighs on me. Sometimes I feel small and lost, a single point of consciousness in an infinity of stone and silence. On those days, I come to the Chamber of Waters, and I sit at the edge of the lake, and I let the warmth seep into me. Sometimes I wade in, up to my knees, up to my waist. The water supports me. It holds me up. I float on my back and gaze at the formations overhead, and I feel, for a little while, that I am not alone, that the rooms themselves are cradling me, keeping me safe, reminding me that I belong. Today I do not wade in. Today I simply sit at the edge, my bare feet dangling in the warmth, and I listen. The chamber has its own sounds. The slow drip of water from the formations above, the deep, almost subsonic hum of the lake itself, as if the water is singing in a register too low for ordinary hearing. The occasional plop of a droplet striking the surface, sending ripples across the stillness. These sounds are ancient. They have been occurring for longer than I have been here. Longer, perhaps, than anyone has been here. They will continue long after I am gone, if I ever go, drop by drop, ripple by ripple, the slow, patient music of water and stone. I find this comforting. The knowledge that some things persist, that some processes continue regardless of whether anyone is there to witness them. The rooms do not need me to exist. They existed before I came, and they will exist after I leave. But while I am here, I can witness, I can appreciate, I can add my small voice to the ancient chorus saying, yes, this is beautiful. Yes, this matters. Yes, I am grateful. That is enough. That is more than enough. Part 7. The other. I should tell you about the other. I am not entirely alone in the rooms. Once every 7 days, sometimes more, sometimes less, I encounter another person. I call this person the other because I do not know their name, and they have never offered it. The other is tall and thin, with silver hair that falls past their shoulders and eyes the color of deep water. They wear a long gray coat, always the same coat, and they carry a small leather satchel that I have never seen them open. They speak rarely. When they do speak, their voice is soft and musical, like wind through strings. I do not know where the other comes from or where they go. They appear suddenly, usually in one of the larger halls or galleries, and they walk with purpose, as if they have somewhere specific to be. Sometimes they nod to me as they pass. Sometimes they pause and ask a question. Have you seen the blue door? They might ask. Or, do you know the way to the hall of reflected stars? Or, is the water still flowing in the fountain court? I answer as best I can. The blue door, I might say, is in the northern wing, past the room of clocks. The hall of reflected stars is 3 days' walk to the west, if you take the faster route through the corridor of winds. Yes, the water still flows in the fountain court. It always flows. The other thanks me and continues on their way. They never stay to talk. They never explain what they are searching for or why. They are a mystery, like so many things in the rooms. But I do not resent them. I am glad, in fact, that I am not entirely alone. The other reminds me that the rooms are larger than my understanding, that there are purposes here beyond my own, that I am part of something, even if I do not know what that something is. Today, as I walk through the gallery of whispered names, I see the other in the distance. They are standing before one of the great windows, looking out at a sky I have never seen from this angle. It is filled with stars, thousands of them, more than I have ever seen at once. They swirl slowly, like cream stirred into coffee, forming patterns that shift and change. I approach quietly, not wanting to disturb them, but they sense me somehow. They turn, and for a moment, our eyes meet. beautiful, they say. It is not a question. Yes, I say, very beautiful. We stand together in silence, watching the stars. It is the longest I have ever been in the other's company. I can feel their presence beside me, warm and solid and real. It is strange, after so much solitude, to share a moment with another person. Do you ever wonder, the other asks, where the rooms came from? I consider the question. It is one I have asked myself many times. I used to, I say. When I first came here, I wanted to understand everything. I searched for answers in the libraries. I examined every artifact I found. I mapped the halls as if mapping might reveal some deeper truth. And now? Now I have accepted that some questions have no answers, or that the answers exist in a form I cannot comprehend. I have stopped searching for origins. I have learned to simply be here, to tend to what I can, to love what is given. The other is silent for a long moment. Then they nod slowly, as if I have confirmed something they already suspected. That is wise, they say. That is very wise. And then, as suddenly as they appeared, they turn and walk away, disappearing into the shadows of the gallery. I watch them go. Then I return my attention to the stars. Part 8. The Midnight Garden. Before I tell you more about the other, I should describe the Midnight Garden. It is different from the Garden of Perpetual Twilight, where that garden exists in the soft blue of evening. The Midnight Garden is draped in true darkness, the kind that presses against your eyes and makes you uncertain where your body ends and the world begins. But it is not a frightening darkness. The Midnight Garden is lit by things that glow, flowers that emit soft phosphorescence in shades of blue and green, mushrooms that pulse gently with inner light, trees whose bark is traced with luminescent veins, mapping patterns that shift and change throughout the night. And above it all, in the sky that is always starless here, float the lantern moth. They are larger than any moths I have seen elsewhere, with wingspans as wide as my two hands together. Their bodies glow with a warm golden light, and they drift through the darkness like embers rising from a fire, illuminating the garden below in slowly moving patches of warmth. I discovered the Midnight Garden during my second year in the rooms, when I was still mapping the halls, still believing I might find an edge or a boundary. I had been walking for many hours through dark corridors, my only light, a small lamp I carried, when suddenly the corridor opened into this. I stood at the entrance and wept, not from sadness, from beauty, from the overwhelming brightness of it, this garden of darkness and light, this place where the absence of sun did not mean the absence of life. I come here often now, especially when sleep eludes me. I walk the winding paths between the glowing flowers. I sit on the soft moss beneath the luminescent trees. I watch the lantern moths drift overhead, their golden light rising and falling, and I let the darkness hold me. In the Midnight Garden, I have learned that darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the canvas on which light becomes visible. Without darkness, we could not see the stars. Without night, we could not know the relief of dawn. The same is true, I think, of all the difficult things. Loneliness makes companionship precious. Loss makes presence sacred. The awareness of endings makes each moment worthy of attention. This is what the Midnight Garden teaches me, and I am grateful for the lesson. Part 9. The Room of Lost Things. There is one room I have not yet described. I hesitate to speak of it because it is the room that moves me most deeply, and I am not sure I have words adequate to convey why. But this is meant to be a complete record, and a complete record must include even the things that are difficult to express. The Room of Lost Things is located in a part of the rooms I call the deep places. The deep places are far below the levels where I spend most of my time. To reach them, one must descend the grand staircase for many hours, passing through regions where the air grows thick and warm, and the light fades to a soft amber glow. Most people, I think, would find the deep places unsettling. They are very quiet, very still. The architecture becomes stranger as you descend. The halls narrower, the ceilings lower, until you feel almost as if you are inside the body of some vast sleeping creature. But I am not most people. I love the deep places. I love their silence and their strangeness. I love the feeling of being far from everything, held in the ancient heart of the world. The Room of Lost Things is at the very bottom of the grand staircase, behind a door that looks like all the other doors, but somehow feels different, heavier, more significant. When you enter, you find yourself in a circular chamber, perhaps 100 paces across, with walls that curve inward to form a domed ceiling. The floor is covered with objects, not scattered randomly, arranged, placed with care in neat rows and careful patterns, as if someone spent years organizing this collection and wanted each item to be seen. And the objects themselves, they are small things, mostly. A child's shoe worn at the toe, a letter folded and refolded until the creases have begun to tear, a pocket watch with no hands, a photograph of people I do not recognize, standing before a house I have never seen, a key that fits no lock I have ever found, a ring, a ribbon, a small wooden bird, painted blue with one wing broken, thousands of them, tens of thousands, more than I could count in a lifetime. I do not know where they come from. I do not know who placed them here or why. But I understand in some deep way what they represent. They are the things that were lost, not just misplaced, not just forgotten, truly lost. Lost in a way that meant something. Lost in a way that left a hole in someone's heart. I come here once a month, always alone. I walk among the objects slowly, reverently. I do not touch them. I only witness. I think of the people who lost these things. I think of the child who wore that shoe, running through grass that is now gone. I think of the person who wrote that letter, pouring their heart onto paper that was never received. I think of the photographer who captured that moment, the lovers who exchanged that ring, the parent who carved that wooden bird for a child who has long since grown old and died. I think of all the love that is embedded in these objects, all the hope, all the grief, and I weep, not from sadness exactly, from something larger, from the overwhelming weight of all the feeling that has ever existed. concentrated in this one small room at the bottom of the world. I weep because it is the only response that seems adequate, the only way to honor what has been lost. And then, when I am finished, I dry my eyes and climb back up the grand staircase, returning to the light and the familiar halls, carrying with me the knowledge that somewhere, far below, all the lost things are waiting. They will not be lost forever. They are found here. They are kept here. They are loved here. That is enough. Part 10. The nature of memory. I have said that my memory begins in the 17th Eastern Gallery. But this is not entirely true. Sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, I catch glimpses of something else, fragments that do not belong to the rooms, images and feelings that seem to come from somewhere far away. A woman's face, soft and kind, looking down at me with love. The smell of bread baking in an oven, the sound of rain on a window, and a feeling of safety, of being held. A garden, smaller than any garden in the rooms, but filled with flowers I somehow recognize. A voice, singing a song I almost know, hands holding mine. I do not know what these fragments mean. I do not know if they are memories of a life I lived before I came to the rooms, or dreams that my mind has invented to fill the emptiness, or something else entirely. For a long time, I tried to hold on to them. I wrote them down in my journals. I returned to them again and again, searching for patterns, trying to construct a story that would explain who I was and where I came from. But the fragments never became clearer. They remained fragments, isolated and unconnected, like pieces of a puzzle whose other pieces have been lost. Eventually, I stopped trying to assemble them. I accepted them for what they were. Glimpses of something I could not recover, echoes of a life that was no longer mine. This life in the rooms, it is a good life, a meaningful life. I have work to do and wonders to witness, and a home that shelters me, and in some sense I cannot explain, loves me. I do not need to know where I came from to know where I am. And so I let the fragments drift, appearing and disappearing like clouds across the painted ceiling of my chamber. I welcome them when they come. I do not mourn them when they fade. They are part of me, whatever they mean. Part 10. The corridor of sleeping statues. I have not yet told you about the statues. They are everywhere in the rooms, in the galleries and halls, in the gardens and courtyards, standing in alcoves and on pedestals, lining the walls and filling the centers of chambers. There are thousands of them, perhaps tens of thousands, perhaps more than can be counted. They depict figures of every kind, men and women and children, creatures that are half one and half another, abstract forms that suggest bodies without quite being bodies. Some are carved from white marble, smooth and cool to the touch. Some are made of darker stone, rough and textured. Some appear to be bronze or copper, green with age, and all of them are sleeping. This is not a metaphor. When I look at the statues, I see beings at rest. Their eyes are closed. Their faces are peaceful. Their bodies are arranged in positions of repose, lying down, sitting with heads bowed, leaning against walls, as if they had simply stopped to rest and never woke. I do not know who they were. I do not know who made them or why. But I have come to believe that they are not simply representations of sleeping figures. I believe they are the figures themselves, transformed somehow into stone, frozen in their rest, waiting for something I do not understand. There is one corridor I call the corridor of sleeping statues. It is in the heart of the rooms, accessible only through a series of increasingly narrow passages that went deeper and deeper into the stone. The corridor itself is perhaps 200 paces long, and every inch of it is filled with statues. They crowd together here, hundreds of them in every posture of sleep. Some lie on the floor in tangled heaps, as if they fell asleep mid-embrace. Some sit against the walls, their stone hands folded in their stone laps. Some stand upright, their heads tipped back, their mouths slightly open as if they were snoring. When I walk through this corridor, I walk slowly and carefully. I do not want to disturb them. I know they cannot hear me, cannot feel my presence, but something in me insists on reverence. These are sleepers, after all, and sleepers deserve quiet. I have given names to some of the statues I see most often. There is the dreaming mother, a woman carved from pale stone, curled on her side with one arm extended, as if reaching for a child who is not there. There is the tired soldier, a young man in what might be armor, slumped against the wall with his head on his chest. There is the sleeping girl, a child of perhaps 8 or 9, lying on her back with her hands folded over her heart, a small smile on her stone lips. I do not know their real names. I do not know if they have real names, but I speak to them sometimes as I pass, wishing them peaceful dreams, telling them they are remembered, telling them they are not alone. Perhaps this is foolish. Perhaps they are only stone and have never been anything else. But I prefer to believe otherwise. I prefer to believe that somewhere, in some layer of reality I cannot perceive, they are still dreaming, still resting, still waiting for the morning that will wake them. And in the meantime, I keep watch. That is what keepers do. Part 11. The season of stillness once a year. By my reckoning, something changes in the rooms. I call it the season of stillness. It begins without warning. One day, I wake and everything is quieter than usual. The fountain's sound seems muted. The birds in the garden galleries do not sing. Even my own footsteps seem to fall more softly, as if the rooms themselves are holding their breath. The first time this happened, I was frightened. I thought something was wrong. I hurried through my rounds, checking each room for damage or decay, searching for some explanation for the change. But I found nothing wrong. Everything was exactly as it should be, only quieter, slower, more still. And after a few days, I began to understand. The season of stillness is not a malfunction. It is a rest, a pause, a moment for the rooms to simply be, without the constant motion and sound that fills them the rest of the year. Even infinite things need rest. During the season of stillness, I change my routine. I walk more slowly. I speak less, even to myself. I spend long hours sitting in the quiet chambers, feeling the silence press against me like a gentle hand. It is the most peaceful time in the rooms. This year, the season of stillness begins as I am sitting in the gallery of morning light. I notice it gradually. The light through the windows seems to soften even further. The dust motes hanging in the air seem to slow their drifting. My own breathing becomes deeper, more deliberate. I set aside my rounds. I will not walk the halls today. I will not check the fountains or visit the libraries. I will simply sit and breathe and be. The rooms hold me in their silence, and I am grateful. Part 12. A conversation with the other. It is during the season of stillness that I have my longest conversation with the other. I encounter them in the hall of infinite columns, a vast space where rows of white stone pillars stretch into darkness in every direction. They are sitting on the floor, their back against one of the columns, their eyes closed. I hesitate, not wanting to disturb them, but they open their eyes as I approach, and they gesture for me to sit. I sit across from them, cross-legged, in the manner I have adopted for meditation. We regard each other in silence for a long moment. You have been here a long time, the other says finally. It is not a question. Yes, I say, though I do not know exactly how long. Time is difficult to measure here. Do you remember how you came to be here? I consider my answer carefully. No, I say. My memory begins in the 17th Eastern Gallery. Everything before that is fragments. That is how it was for me as well, they say. In the beginning, I lean forward slightly. This is more than the other has ever shared with me. You remember more now? I ask. Some, they say. Not everything, but enough to know that I was once elsewhere, that I had a different life in a different place with different people. Do you miss it? The other is silent for a long time. Their eyes drift to the columns around us, the endless repetition of white stone fading into shadow. I used to, they say finally. I used to ache for it. I would walk the halls searching for a way back, convinced that if I just found the right door, the right passage, I could return to everything I had lost. And now I understand that there is no going back. The life I had is finished. The people I knew are gone. What remains is this. They gesture at the columns, the silence, the vast and endless rooms. And this is enough. I think about this for a long time. Do you think we are dead? I ask quietly. That these rooms are some kind of afterlife? The other smiles, a small and gentle smile. I do not think we are dead, they say, but I am not certain we are alive in the way we once were. I think we are something else now, something in between, something that exists to tend and witness and keep. Keepers, I say. Yes, they say, keepers. That is what we are. We sit together in silence for what might be ours. The season of stillness holds us both. gentle and complete. I feel for the first time a deep kinship with this stranger who is not quite a stranger. We are bound together by something larger than ourselves. We are both part of the rooms. When the other finally rises to leave, they place a hand briefly on my shoulder. Thank you, they say, for tending to this place, for loving it as you do. Thank you, I say, for being here, for reminding me that I am not alone. They nod once, and then they walk away into the columns, disappearing between the pillars like a ghost fading into morning light. I remain where I am, sitting in the silence, feeling the rooms breathe around me. Part 13. The whispering walls. There's a phenomenon in the rooms that I have never been able to explain. In certain corridors at certain times the walls whisper. I do not mean that there are voices hidden within them, or that someone speaks from behind the stone. The whispers seem to come from the walls themselves, from the ancient material that has stood here for longer than I can imagine. They rise and fall like breath, like the murmur of a crowd heard from very far away, like the sound of a river heard through stone. I cannot make out words. I have tried many times, pressing my ear against the cold surface, straining to hear something recognizable. But the whispers remain just beyond comprehension, tantalizing and elusive. At first, this troubled me. I wanted to understand the message they were trying to convey. I spent months searching for patterns, recording the times and places where the whispers were loudest, looking for some key that would unlock their meaning. But I never found one, and eventually I stopped searching. I accepted the whispers for what they are. Another mystery, another wonder. Now, when I pass through a corridor where the walls are whispering, I simply listen. I let the sound wash over me. I let it fill my ears and my mind. I imagine that the walls are speaking of their own history, telling stories of everything they have witnessed over the ages, the people who have walked these halls, the events that have unfolded within these spaces, the slow, patient work of time, wearing its stone, smoothing edges, deepening cracks. Perhaps that is what the whispers are, the accumulated memory of the rooms themselves, too vast and ancient to be compressed into words that a human mind could understand. Perhaps the walls remember everything, and their whispers are the overflow, the excess, the things that cannot be contained in silence. I find comfort in this thought. It means the rooms are not just a place, they are a witness, a keeper, like me. They hold within their stone the record of everything that has happened here, everything that has been lost and lost again. We are keepers together, the rooms and I, and when I am gone, if I am ever gone, the walls will still whisper, the memory will continue. Nothing will be forgotten. Part 14. The discovery. 2 days after my conversation with the other, I make a discovery. I am walking through a part of the rooms I have visited many times before, a section of galleries in the northern wing, where the walls are hung with tapestries depicting scenes from stories I do not know. I have examined these tapestries closely over the years, admiring their craftsmanship, wondering about the hands that wove them. But today, I notice something I have never noticed before. Behind one of the tapestries, in a section where the wall appeared solid, there is a door. I do not understand how I could have missed it. I have walked past this spot hundreds of times. I have run my hands along these walls, and yet here it is, plain as day. A wooden door set into the stone, partially hidden by the heavy fabric of the tapestry. My heart beats faster as I pull the tapestry aside. The door is old, older than any door I have seen in the rooms. The wood is dark and weathered, and the iron handle is spotted with rust. There is no lock that I can see. I stand before it for a long time, uncertain what to do. In all my years in the rooms, I have never hesitated to open a door. Every door has led to another wonder, another mystery, another aspect of this place I have grown to love. There has never been any danger, but this door feels different somehow. Heavier, more significant. I think of the other's words. The life I had is finished. I think of my own fragments, the glimpses of a world beyond these walls. I think of the possibility that this door might lead out, and I realize that I do not want to leave. The realization surprises me. For so long, I assumed that if I ever found a way out of the rooms, I would take it without hesitation. I would return to whatever life I had before, whatever world awaited me beyond these endless halls. But now, standing before this ancient door, I understand that the rooms have become my life. This is my world. This is where I belong. I do not need to know what lies beyond this door. I do not need to find out. I lower the tapestry gently, letting it fall back into place, hiding the door once more. And I walk away. Part 15. The understanding that night, as I lie in my bed beneath the painted stars, I think about what I have learned. I came to the rooms from somewhere else. There was a life before this one, people who loved me, a world that was smaller, but no less real. I have lost that world, just as the objects in the room of lost things have been lost by those who cherish them. But loss is not the same as destruction. The things we lose do not cease to exist. They simply move to a different place, a place where they are held and kept and remembered. Perhaps that is what the rooms are, a place where lost things come to rest, a sanctuary for everything that has slipped through the cracks of the ordinary world. And perhaps that is why I am here. Perhaps I was lost once in some way I do not remember. Perhaps the rooms found me, as they found all the other lost things, and gave me a home. If that is true, then I am exactly where I am meant to be. I close my eyes and listen to the silence of the rooms around me. The silence is not empty. It is full of presence, full of the accumulated weight of everything that has ever been brought here. Everything that has ever been loved and kept safe within these walls. I am part of that now. I am woven into the fabric of this place, as surely as the threads of the tapestries, as surely as the carvings on the great fountain. And I am content. Part 16. The evening rounds each evening as the light fades in the galleries where there is light to fade. I make my final rounds of the day. I walk more slowly in the evenings than in the mornings. There is a different quality to the rooms at this hour, a settling, a softening, as if the walls themselves are preparing for rest. I check the fountains one last time, ensuring the water flows as it should. I pass through the galleries, noting any changes, any new objects that may have appeared, any doors that may have opened where no doors were before. Most evenings, nothing has changed. The rooms are remarkably constant in their strangeness. But I make my rounds anyway, because the act of witnessing is itself valuable. The rooms deserve to be seen, even when there is nothing new to see. Tonight, my final stop is the observatory. The observatory is at the very top of the rooms, or at least the very top that I have discovered. To reach it, one must climb a spiral staircase that winds up through a tower of pale stone, passing landings where windows look out on skies of every color and condition. The climb takes nearly an hour, but I do not mind. The staircase is beautiful, the views are magnificent, and by the time I reach the top, I have left behind all the thoughts and concerns of the day. I arrive at the observatory empty and open, ready to receive whatever the night sky has to offer. The observatory itself is a circular room with a domed ceiling made entirely of glass, or something like glass. When you look up, you see only stars, millions of them, billions, more than can be counted, more than can be comprehended. A vast and infinite expanse of light against darkness. I lie down on the smooth stone floor and gaze upward. The stars do not move, but they seem to pulse faintly, as if breathing. I have watched them for many years now, and I have come to believe that they are alive in some way I do not understand. Not conscious, perhaps, not in the way I am conscious, but alive in the way a fire is alive, or a river. Alive with energy and light, and the slow burning of ancient fuel. I do not try to name the constellations. I do not try to understand the patterns. I simply watch and breathe and let the immensity wash over me. This is my favorite part of each day. This moment of surrender, when I stop being the keeper and become simply a witness. A small creature looking up at something vast. A single point of consciousness in an infinite universe. I think about the other's words. We are something in between. Yes, that feels right. We are in between. Between the life we had and whatever comes next. Between the ordinary world and something larger. Between sleeping and waking. Between remembering and forgetting. Part 17. Toward sleep, when I return to my chamber, the painted stars on the ceiling are glowing softly, as they always do. I undress slowly, folding my clothes and placing them on the chair where new clothes will appear by morning. I wash my face and hands in the cool water of the basin. I slip into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin. The bed is soft and warm. The ceiling glows above me. I think about the day I have had, the gallery of morning light, the fountain court, the library of unfinished thoughts, the garden of perpetual twilight, the discovery of the hidden door, my conversation with the other. It was a good day. They are all good days here, even the difficult ones The ones when loneliness presses in or when the questions become too heavy are good in their way. They are part of the tapestry, part of the pattern, part of the life I have been given. I am grateful. I close my eyes and feel sleep beginning to gather at the edges of my consciousness. It comes gently here, not like a wave crashing, but like a tide rising, slow and sure and inevitable. I do not resist it. I welcome it. Sleep is its own kind of room after all, its own gallery, its own garden, a place where the boundaries soften and everything becomes possible. Perhaps I will dream tonight. Perhaps the fragments will come, the glimpses of that other life I cannot quite remember. Or perhaps I will dream of the rooms themselves, walking through halls I have not yet discovered, meeting people I have not yet met. Or perhaps I will dream of nothing at all and simply rest in the deep darkness, held by the silence, safe and warm and complete. It does not matter which. Whatever comes, I will welcome it. If you are listening to this, you are here with me now. Not in the rooms exactly. You have your own rooms, your own halls, your own galleries to explore. But here, in this space between sleeping and waking, where my voice reaches you and the silence holds us both, you are a keeper too. In your own way, you tend to your own life. You tend to your own life. You witness your own wonders. You hold your own lost things gently, with love and grief, and the hope that loss is not the end. Whatever brought you here tonight, whatever question or sorrow or weariness led you to seek this quiet place, I want you to know. The ones who pay attention, the ones who notice beauty even when no one else is looking, the ones who keep showing up day after day, tending to what they can, loving what is given. The world needs keepers. Every world does. So rest now. Let the silence hold you. Let the imagined rooms of your own mind open their doors, revealing galleries you have not yet explored, gardens you have not yet walked. There is more to discover. There is always more. But that is for tomorrow. Tonight, there is only this. The softness of where you lie, the gentle rhythm of your breathing, the slow dissolving of thought into peace. The rooms will still be here when you wake. I will still be here, walking the halls, witnessing the light, keeping what deserves to be kept. Sleep now. Sleep knowing you are held. Sleep knowing you are found. Good night, gentle keeper.